Okay, this begins our lectures on section 5.7, solving linear inequalities. Our objectives will be to solve to review the inequality symbols, to graph inequalities, both simple and compound, understand the solution set for inequalities, solve and graph simple linear inequalities, solve and graph compound linear inequalities, learn interval notation, and learn applications. So first of all, let's review our notation, and I'm just going to blow this up for a little bit so we can see these a little bit better. So the inequality symbols that we are going to be seeing is a less than symbol and a greater than symbol. These are both called strict inequalities, and that means that the endpoints are not included. An endpoint is a number which is in an inequality, and it's where the solution set begins or ends, and it continues on from there. And then the greater than or equal to, or the less than or equal to. And these, the endpoint is included. That's why there's equality. Now, in the old way of graphing, and the way that Lehman's going to show you in your book, with strict inequalities, the less than symbol and the greater than symbol, we graph those with an open circle. And then when we have the greater than or equal to, or the less than or equal to, we graph those with a solid or closed circle. When I'm going to graph these, I'm going to show the less than and the greater thans being used with a parentheses for the endpoint, and a greater than or equal to and a less than or equal to being used with a parenthesis. And we'll see that a little bit more in just a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead now and get into the notation. And the first thing that we're going to learn is we're going to learn how to put things into standard form. Standard form means that the variable is on the left, and then on the right is the number. And the inequality in the middle of that then tells us which way to draw a line when we're graphing these on the number line. So we're going to do these examples in number 37. So what I'm going to start out by doing is I'm going to put the variable over here on the left, and I'm going to put the number over here on the right. And then you see that the number, or the inequality, points to the number. So I'm going to point it at the number and write it in. And now I have it. Now I can read this. X is greater than or equal to 5. Now I'll do this again. I want the variable on the left and the number on the right. And I see this thing points to the y, so I'm going to make it point to the y here. And now I can read it. Y is less than or equal to -2. And there we go. And then finally, again, variable on the left, number on the right. And now I'm going to see that the inequality symbol points to the variable, so I'm going to point it at the variable this time, and now I can read it. M is less than 5,002. Now our next thing is to graph these inequalities when they're in standard form. So the first thing that we're going to do when we see a standard form inequality is we're going to locate the endpoint. This is my endpoint, the 3. So I'm going to locate the 3 right here on the number line. And now I'm going to read this. X is greater than 3. So 3 is not included, so I'm going to put a parenthesis on 3, and then I'm going to draw the line going to the right here, just like that. And that's the graph of this. Now, Lehman will show an open circle on the 3, but I'm going to use this notation because that will go into our interval notation. Our next one isn't in standard form, so I'm going to first of all start out by putting it in standard form because that makes it much easier to graph. So y over here on the left, number on the right, and then I see that this points to the y, so I'm going to point it to the y. Now I can graph it easily. Y is less than 2, so I'm going to locate my endpoint 2, and it's less than, so it's going to the left, so I'm going to put a parenthesis on the 2, and then draw my line to the left. You notice that the arrow goes the direction of the inequality when it's in standard form, only when it's in standard form though. Now part C, again, not in standard form, so variable on the left, number on the right. Inequality points to the number this time, so make it point to the number. Now I'm going to locate the endpoint, -2, and I'm going to use a bracket this time because that is an inclusion. In this case, Lehman would use a dot, but I'm just going to use the bracket, and the arrow goes off to the right like this, and there's my graph. The last one, I have my standard form, so I'm just going to locate my endpoint, the 5, and it's going to the left, so I'm going to use a right bracket, and then it's going off to the left like this, and that would be the graphs of these in simple linear inequalities. Next, we'll talk about compound inequalities.